Hello, it's the Great Canadian Bagel here, coming to you with the next update to the French presidential election series. To do another, I'm going to say, soft victory lap here. My forecast last week that Macron is going to lose another 2 to 3 points in the polls, not necessarily because Macron's campaign's doing anything wrong, but because the Russia-Ukraine war is becoming less important as a campaign issue, and the initial issues of security or crime and immigration and cost of living and stuff like that becomes more reasserts itself as the core issues of the campaign. He's going to lose some steam. He did. He went from being polling range of 29 to 30, 31 last week to, over the course of this week, he's 27 to 29 range. So, solidly on point there. Feels good. What is unexpected, though, is Le Pen is booming. Just in the last week, her polling numbers have went up from about 18, 19 to 20 to 21. Though some, again, having her on 19, 19.5. But as high as 20, 20.5, I believe, is the highest she scored this week. Or is it 21? I think it's 21. These are the best polling numbers Le Pen has polled since Zemmour entered the race. Quite shocking. I don't really have a great explanation for this. I think this is a subtlety that I'm missing because my French is not very good and it's not coming across well in English language media coverage of the election. But what it is safe to say, she's absolutely on the rise. You can see this here. Her heartland in the north is a lot more solid in her favor than last week. A lot of these districts are either safer or tilt in her column now, such as Meuse and Voyage here now tilt in her favor, whereas before they were tilt in Macron's favor, and especially in the south here, again, same kind of thing. The other moving going on right now is Mélenchon. He's gained about a percentage point in the aggregate, and his polling is around 14-ish%. So I think over the course of this week, if he stays there or keeps going, we'll also see him rise again. And at the rate he's going, I think there is a very distinct possibility he could threaten second place. I'm not sure if he has enough time left in the election. I think we have, 14 days? So about 2 weeks left. But he is gaining ground. So I think he might at least do around as good as he did last election. Though we might not see it on the map. He might not break through enough to get department tilted in his favor if Macron stays where he is. I think Macron would have to lose quite a bit of steam to show up. And while he has lost some more steam, I'm not 100% certain if he's going to keep losing more. We'll see. My money, not that I'm gambling on the election, but my money would be on Macron again losing a few more points and going to around 25 to 27 range by the end of the week, which is on maybe 24 to 27 range for the polling, which would be roughly similar to what he was before the Russia-Ukraine war. We will see. I don't know if Le Pen is going to continue where she is right now, or she will start falling. That is kind of hard to say because I'm missing the key details on why she seems to be picking up a lot of steam right now, but she's absolutely booming. Pécresse and Zemmour keep falling, and actually Zemmour, I thought he had stabilized last week, but his numbers just collapsed again this week. They went from being sitting around maybe 12, 13, and they're now gunning as low as 9. So, again, the intricacies there I'm not really sure about, though I think potentially for Zemmour the issue is he kind of lost a bit of authenticity. When he said he would allow Ukrainian immigrants in, or refugees in. And I think that might be what's causing his pain. And potentially maybe it's what's fueling Le Pen's growth is more voters are moving over to Le Pen, and that might be why. But I don't really have the good oversight. So if any viewer who speaks better French than me and is paying attention to the election, or a French resident, ideally, who might have an idea for this, I welcome all your comments in the sec below. If I get enough opinions of this, I might be able to get a full-fledged picture, and I would love that. I like understanding this kind of stuff. I mean, that's literally the point of my channel. I like understanding complex things like elections here. And bear with me. There we go. I had the wrong monitor screen. I'm not going to re-record this because why? It's just a little cropped, but whatever. So now, moving on to second round here. So as we can see, the second round is also going a bit better for Le Pen, which should not be surprising when when she does a lot better in the first round. We should expect her to do better in the second round, since first round voters almost entirely stay with the candidate going into the second round, so it's a very good predictor. But needless to say, she did better in the south, better in the north, reduced some of Macron's gains in the west. Not necessarily very noticeably, but like subtly, like this department went to a slightly brighter color. Went from the 59 plus column to the 57, for example. Some of the departments around Paris are a bit less safe for Macron now. Again, small fish, but it is better numbers. So if we go to here, and I'll go back to the overall numbers in a second, I think these two graphs here, this one's probably fine. This one's probably not very useful anymore because of that big bump Macron did have. Unfortunately, it is what it is. We see now, Le Pen has recovered some ground, but she's still well below, a whole percentage point below her position before the war started. So I'm expecting potentially, if things are going the way they're going, and Macron does fall down back to his February 27th numbers of 24-ish in the first round, if he does decay back there and Le Pen keeps her ground in the first round, I am expecting the second round numbers here to be very competitive. So, I think fortunately for me, because it makes my channel more interesting and this coverage more interesting, it looks like we might have a very competitive second round, which we sort of did with Le Pen late February, but a 6-point lead is quite significant. And if that whittles down to 4 points or 2-point lead, that becomes a very close race and become very interesting. We'll see going forward how interesting it actually will be. But I am hopeful, and that is good, because that makes coverage more interesting if the election's competitive. There's not much reason to see updates if update A is Macron's blowing it out. Update B, Macron's blowing it out. Update C, Macron's blowing it out. Not that interesting. So cynically, I like when elections are very competitive. And what is the word for it? Philosophically, it is better for elections to be very competitive. One interesting thing to note here, Roussel has flatlined here. It's not necessarily because his polling is getting worse. There's some intricacies in my model where someone might be getting polled like 3.5 to 4% range, and they slightly underperform that in the model because of data and demographics and all that nonsense. So he seems to have flatlined. But then again, if we just look at the last 2 weeks, Roussel's down, Hidalgo's down, Jadot's down, obviously Tabira's down, and she'll be almost zero by the time the election rolls around. Pécresse is down, Zamora's down, others down. It's just Le Pen, interestingly, Dupont-Aignan, Macron, well, he's kind of flatlined, so maybe he could argue he's down. So right now, in the last 2 weeks, only Mélenchon, Dupont-Aignan, and Le Pen have had any positive movement, which is quite interesting. And both Le Pen and Mélenchon have had very large positive movement. So we can say here, in isolation, Mélenchon has sucked up a bunch of left-wing voters, and I think some of support from Macron. Some of the Pécresse voters, I think, might have switched to Macron based on polling data, or the Les Républicains voters have switched to Macron, while left-wing voters have left Macron for Mélenchon. And Le Pen is starting to... the Le Pen-Zemmour lane seems to be consolidating behind Le Pen right now. I don't really know why Dupont-Aignan is gained a bump. Unfortunately, he doesn't get detailed polling very frequently, so his whole entire column is more of an educated guess than an actual prediction, because some polls do give him separately and some don't, and I don't really know what the why, but so he's my least confident result here. Going back to this, I think going forward, oops, I'm being dumb here. Okay. What my suspicion is, barring Pécresse or Zemmour reviving their campaigns, there's 2 weeks, a lot of time is left. If we look back to the Canadian election, for those viewers who've watched both of these, it was like 10 days before the election day when the Liberals went from second place to first place. Obviously, we're talking about a smaller vote showing, but crazier things have happened. But barring Zemmour and Pécresse gaining steam again, what I'm expecting to happen is the field is going to narrow to Mélenchon. He's going to dominate the left vote. Le Pen is going to dominate the Le Pen-Zemmour vote. Macron's going to lose a bit of steam, but I think he's going to pick up steam from Pécresse voters, and possibly Dupont-Aignan is going to pick up some steam from Pécresse voters, leaving Pécresse's from Les Républicains leaving Pécresse. And I think we'll see the field really narrow down to 3 candidates going into the first round. Of that, if it is Le Pen versus Macron, I think it is competitive right now. If somehow Mélenchon manages to make it and get to the second round, which I think is exceedingly unlikely, right now I would give it like a 1% chance. It would require essentially Le Pen to lose steam and split her vote almost equally with split the Le Pen Zemmour vote almost 50-50. And then he would have to dominate all of the left-wing vote. It could happen then. Not very likely. And if we go back to here for a second, I do now have tracking for Mélenchon. It's just 1 week, and I don't have a ton of data, so I'm not super confident on this one result yet. But he would really not do much better than Zemmour. Now, you could argue if Mélenchon consolidated like the Roussel and what's left of the Tobiro column here and the Hidalgo column and the Jadot vote, if you can consolidate all of this and maybe some of Macron's vote, he could probably get around 20. Like, it is conceivable. It's not an impossibility. It would just require a lot of consolidation among the left, which just hasn't happened yet. And the French left have been doing a lot of effort to not consolidate their vote. So I'm not expecting it, and I'm very doubtful it would happen. But again, crazy things have happened. For Pécresse, like, we look at the numbers here, I think at this point her campaign is pretty much shot. Since January 30th, she hasn't gained numbers once. That's what is this, like 8 weeks? Every single week she's lost support. I think her days might be numbered here. Zemmour is more interesting because he did actually lose a lot of support going into January 30. Almost this level he's currently being pulled at, and then he pulled it back and got all the way back up to about 15 and was polling 16, 17 before the Russia-Ukraine war. And the war, coupled with possibly some of his own comments regarding Ukrainian refugees, seems to have damaged his campaign a lot, and it's so close to election day, I'm not sure if he can recover. I think realistically, Zemmour, given 3 months, would easily be able to recover, and it would just be a blip. It just so happens that this is so close to election day, I don't know if he can do it. Though, if he does try again in 2027 and Le Pen fails again in the second round, I think he will dominate the Le Pen Zemmour lane. The reason being, her first failure Le Pen had, you could argue everyone has rallied against her. That doesn't seem to be what's happening right now. It does not seem to be. Maybe when we get to the polling for the second round and the politics for the second round and the debates and the media atmosphere, maybe then you'll see everyone rallying against her. But right now it does not at all seem to be anti-Le Pen motivation. So without the scapegoat of, the media establishment did everything they could to prevent me from winning in the second round, I think she loses her credibility to run a third time, to be the vote choice of the French right, essentially. The other thing I think we can already see coming from this election is Les Républicains, at their current moment as a more moderate conservative party, it seems like the days are numbered. They might see a revival down the line, but in the near term, it looks like the French conservatives, people who lean to the right on France, do not have the stomach for it. You could argue it's because Macron is shifting towards the right, so he's kind of eroding the Les Republicans from the right or from the left, and they're also being eroded from the right by Le Pen and Zemmour. But at the end of the day, it seems like the party is having a tough time. Now, again, maybe you could argue it's the candidate. Maybe if they had a different person, they wouldn't be having this problem. But they also kind of had the same problem last time. Now, maybe you could argue then in 2017, if it wasn't for François Fillon's corruption scandal, he would have won the election there. Maybe. But at this point, it doesn't seem likely. And this is the thing. I mean, French politics, parties don't seem to last very long to begin with, before merging or changing their names or changing their identities. It seems to happen quite frequently, at least in the last 20 years. And it seems like more and more, not just in France, but the US, Canada, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, etc., Italy, right-wing parties are getting more assertive, more populist, and more willing to fight social fights. And it seems like Pécresse tried to balance that. I don't think it's even possible to argue, based on what I've seen from her platform, what she's argued, that she's not economically right. But it seems like the current zeitgeist of the right in the West, economic right-wing concerns, important, but are becoming increasingly secondary to social. Now, a good candidate can argue that if we do these economically right-wing policies, it can cause to social wins that the right prefers. But Pécresse doesn't seem to be able to do that. And it seems a lot of mainstream conservative parties are struggling to do that too. This doesn't mean this populist, more socially concerned conservatives will take over the right or even win elections. But that seems to be where the energy is coming from. And that seems to be where the most growth is. In a lot of European countries, it's been quite observed that the right wing is getting stronger. But what's noted is the right-wing parties that are gaining steam are not establishment conservatives. In Sweden, for example, the moderate party, which from my view as a non-Swedish person who has a decent idea, but not obviously intimate because I don't live there, the moderate party is a very establishment conservative. They might have shifted a bit right recently, but like bog standard. When the right started gaining strength in Sweden, it didn't cause the moderate party to go double-digit or to 40% range. No, a separate 20% popular support Swedish Democrats emerged, which is focused far more on social concerns. Economic concerns are there, but it's almost entirely social. You look at Italy. Italy's even more of just a disaster when it comes to politics. I don't know how that country governs itself. They have too many parties who are too equally in strength that it's just chaos politically. But you look at the last decade or so, you have a right-wing party, it grows, hits a point, gets power, declines, replaced by even more socially right-wing. Gets power, declines. You start off with, I can't think of the name of it, but the letters are FI, the FI party, can't think of the name. Then you have Liga du Nord come in. Then you have FDI come in, which I believe is Fraternity Brothers of Italy, the Brothers of Italy Party, or Brotherhood of Italy Party. And each of these are progressively more and more concerned about social issues and less concerned about economic issues. They still exist, but the focus is becoming more and more on social issues. You look at another example. You look at Canada. You look at the last decade, the Conservative parties roughly stayed around the same strength. Every single election, around 30 to 35, 31 to 35 range really, is where they seem to get. And the People's Party is growing basically alongside it. It's not really encroaching or meaningfully affecting the Conservative Party's vote share. And it's growing, and it's almost entirely focused on social concerns. There's some argument that economic victories can cause good social wins, but it's almost entirely focused on social. And when I say social, I mean things like immigration, different, like, it's kind of hard to explain, but like policies on regulations with regards to freedom and the size of government and the strength of government, which again, it sounds economic, but the focus isn't on this is economically efficient or not. It's bad for society. That's the different plan of attack. Often they coincide with the economic conservative, but it's not about the economics. It's about the social ramifications. You also see this in the U.S. The power that is the right-wing faction that has energy in the U.S. is not the generic establishment Republicans who are mostly focused on economic concerns. You might say like a Mitt Romney, for example. No, it's people who are concerned about primarily social issues. Your Donald Trump, your Ron DeSantis. These are the people who are getting the publicity, they're getting the energy, they're getting the momentum. Will it persist? I don't know. But this is not a uniquely French problem. Problem is the wrong word. It's not a uniquely French phenomenon. And I think it is going to continue. I think this might have been, this is a hard prediction. Hard as in, I don't have too much other than trends across the West to go on, not much from France in particular. But I think Les Républicains, this election might have been their kind of last gasp. Same with on the left, this was kind of the last gasp of the Parti Socialiste. These parties are getting replaced by more socially focused parties. Economics are still there, but the priority isn't. I hope that makes sense to everybody. If you agree with me, like the video, subscribe, comment below. All these things. Again, I'd like to call out to any of my viewers from France or for viewers who are better speaking at French so they can look at French media and understand it better. French media in French, that is. And let me know if there's any reasons, like any other particular reason why Le Pen might be doing well other than Zemmour's losing ground. Like, is her upswing because of Zemmour flailing? Or is she doing something that I'm not able to get in the media that I can see? And I will be honest, I don't actually know many great French news media organizations. The only ones I'm able to find that either that I can understand with my poor French skills and or provide English translations. I don't necessarily think they're the most trustworthy news sites. I'm not going to name names because I don't really know them well enough, and I don't want to attack a news company without having like a very strong understanding of them. Like, for example, I'll attack right now. CBC's garbage, almost always, and I'm intimately aware of this because I'm from Canada and I see their news all the time, and I see the news compared to other news companies from Canada, from the U.S. that cover Canada. France, I don't really see these news companies as often, so I don't really want to attack them for being bad, because I don't know. I don't have enough details. So if you could make recommendations, let me know. I gladly hear them. I like to do everything I can to make these videos as good as I can, as accurate as my model can be, and as the analysis on what's actually causing what's going on as good as it can. Frankly, at this point, I think my channel is more about the analysis of things that are going on than the polls themselves, but the polls themselves do make pretty images, and I do like computing them for the sake of computing them. So that's always going to continue, but the analysis seems what makes people want to stay. Let me know if I'm wrong with that, but otherwise, hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next week for the next update.